It's a new day on the Defiant and everything's gone pear-shaped. We're helpless in space with 2 Jem'Hadar ships incoming. Not really, of course, as we're actually playing possum and the Rotaran appears to ambush the attackers. Celebrations are cut short by orders to fall back to the station Sisko's on. Spending so long on the back foot has everybody concerned, and Dax tells Sisko as much once she gets there. He agrees with her conclusion that we need a win, which is why he's made a plan to recapture Deep Space Nine. Calling it a plan is perhaps overselling things, as his entire idea seems to be get a lot of ships together and fly over there. A few people are apprehensive about the get a lot of ships together part, as it will leave other areas vulnerable, not least of which Earth itself. Sisko thinks that's not really a risk, as the Dominion knows the wormhole is vital to their ultimate success. Speaking of Terok Nor, Quark is helping Morn with advice on how to deal with his angry mother. He stops when he sees Kira and moves to intercept her instead. He wants to try and help Rom, his underappreciated brother, so they're off to talk to Odo. Quark's unwilling to believe Odo would be in cahoots with the Dominion, though Kira's significantly more skeptical after her last encounter. Her skepticism proves accurate as the guards at Odo's door tell us he left instructions not to be disturbed by anyone as long as Odetta's visiting. Okay, that was 3 days ago, but still. Quark trying to push through makes the Jem'Hadar lad a bit miffed, so we bugger off before there's bloodshed. Probably just as well he didn't get through, as Odo's been doing a bit of the old dirty little bastard with Odetta, and in solid form to let her know what it's like. She concludes it's a frankly piss-poor version of what linking can be, though Odo says he's had fun with it previously. All this exploration has him distracted, and he's surprised to learn a meeting he thought he was about to attend happened 3 days back. She says not to worry about such things, and they go back to gooping together. Kira's not giving up on Rom, the underappreciated brother. 5th Uncle Wayoon the Creepy is her next stop, but a pointless one. Rom's a terrorist. Terrorists get executed. That's how you prevent terrorism. Kira has the good sense to not point out how that thinking worked for the Cardigans, and instead suggests her complaint will become an official Bajoran matter. 5th Uncle Wayoon is unswayed and makes it clear such an approach would change nothing. Kira's not alone in trying to help, as Quark hasn't given up either. He's spoken to Grand Nagus Zek himself, who said he'll pay whatever the Dominion wants. Rom still thinks he's buggered, much to the dismay of his wife, Lita, but he's oddly fine with it. Well, not fine, but he wants Quark to stop trying to save him, and instead focus on destroying the deflector so the Dominion can't remove the minefield. Quark's far from delighted by the idea, but doesn't argue back as he leaves. Kira's still not given up on Rom, the underappreciated brother, and has one final throw of the dice. She's asking Ziyal to talk her father into pardoning him. Ziyal's willing to give it a shot. After all, Seagull Dukat himself has told her time and time again that he regrets some of his actions during the occupation. This would be a way to prove to everybody that he's far more caring than the average Bajoran believes. His answer, after making sure she wasn't involved, is an emphatic no. Rom's a terrorist. Terrorists get executed. That's how you prevent terrorism. Telling her this is the Cardigan way, and her way too, is enough to break the spell he holds over her, and she denounces both him and that part of herself before leaving. All of which means we're running out of ideas to help Rom, the underappreciated brother. Quark's hired some muscle to break him free, which Kira says was pointless. Anything other than a meticulous and well-considered plan is going to fail, and he reluctantly agrees. With their conspiring over, they move to the bar, where Damar Dawson-Biggs tries to bark some orders at Kira. She tells him to eat shit on her way out, but he's not overly bothered by it, not when he's got such great news. The tests on those mines were a success, and he'll soon be ready to pop the lot. Quark throws out some guesses on how long it'll take, probably to coax Damar Dawson-Biggs into giving him the real number, and is rewarded for the effort. 1 week from now, the Dominion will be able to bring through all their waiting reinforcements and end this war. Let's hope Sisko's plan comes together before then, though he's currently struggling to get the Klingons involved. Both Worf and General Martok, husband of Sirella, agree with his plan, but Gowron's concerned about committing so many ships. Martok, husband of Sirella, suggests having both he and Worf go and convince him personally, advice being difficult to ignore when it comes from someone he likes and someone he hates. They'd best get their skates on, as Quark's sharing the news that those mines are coming down in a week. He still wants to try and involve Odo, but Kira's convinced that's no longer an option. What they need is a way to contact Starfleet, so it's lucky Jake's a smart lad with an idea on how to get in touch with his dad. Morn's family trouble is being smoothed over by delivering gifts to his dear old mum, and if a ribbon tied around one of those gifts just happens to be carrying an encoded message, then who's to know? The good news is Sisko's got the message. The bad news is it took 4 days to deliver, so we've only got 3 left to get to DS9. The really shit news is one of the 3 fleets we were planning to take won't be here in time, and the Klingons haven't given us an answer either. We don't have much of a choice, though. If the minefield kabooms, we're buggered anyway, so Sisko prepares to leave with what we have. That's a smart choice, too, as Seagull Dukat and 5th Uncle Weyoun the Creepy are watching mines be disabled. Well, that's not strictly true on 2 counts. Only the replicators are being disabled, and only Seagull Dukat is watching, because 5th Uncle Weyoun's eyesight isn't good enough to see them. He'll be able to see the results in 3 days, though, when all the replicators have been disabled, and they can kaboom the entire minefield in one go. Perhaps, anyway, as Damar Dawson Biggs arrives to let them know about Starfleet ship movements they've detected. Rather a large collection is amassing at the station Sisko's on, and 5th Uncle Weyoun's very insistent that we find out why before he leaves. Seagull Dukat thinks that can wait, though, and in the face of protests from Damar Dawson Biggs, sends him to fix bridges with Ziyal on his behalf and get her to talk to him. Ziyal is disinclined to listen, as she's busy being very pissed off about her dad to Kira. The diplomatic skills of Damar Dawson Biggs fail almost immediately, and he calls her an ungrateful little shit as he tries to drag her away, all of which earns him several bonks on the noggin from Kira. Back on Sisko's starbase, we're ready for the off. He's reading Bajoran's scrolls, of all things, perhaps looking for hints left by the prophets. He's learned nothing, except perhaps how much Bajor matters to him. He sings its praises to Admiral Ross and says he plans to live there when all this shit is over. We have to solve the shit first, though, so off we all go, including a newly promoted Eggnog, who's now a full ensign. Having a whole lot of ships fly towards Terok Nor is a difficult thing to hide, which is why Seagull Dukat now knows we're coming. 5th Uncle Weyoun the Creepy concludes we've found out about the mines, but isn't overly concerned. Seagull Dukat is less confident, as a solid defense requires pulling in a lot of ships, but 5th Uncle Weyoun reminds him there's plenty more waiting on the other side of the wormhole. Enter Damar Dawson Biggs, and looking like he's been mashing potatoes with his face. He wants Kira to be arrested, but Seagull Dukat doesn't give 2 shits about that and demands to know about Ziyal. Learning how the meeting went displeases him, not least of which because he knows Kira wouldn't have laid into him unless he was being a cock, but 5th Uncle Weyoun pulls his attention back by saying he can overhear the entire thing, and maybe Seagull Dukat would like to deal with the incoming invasion force before his family trouble. He leaves a very annoyed Seagull Dukat, and a Damar Dawson Biggs trying to think of a way that all this wasn't his fault. Odo's watching the crowds with Odetta, only he sees them differently now. Hearing Odetta's plan for the solids still upsets him a little, but not enough for him to object when she sends him to his quarters so she can talk to 5th Uncle Weyoun the Creepy alone. A compliment from him about how well Odetta's handling Odo draws a rebuke from her, and an explanation that reclaiming Odo matters more to the Founders than everything this war will gain. Odo's not entirely turned yet, though, hence him running to catch up with Kira when he sees her. He doesn't have the words for how to explain everything, but then she wouldn't listen to him if he did. Being sorry is all he's got, and that's nowhere near enough. And speaking of not enough, random ships are struggling to keep up with the fleet due to various problems. 11 have fallen back so far, according to Plain Simple Garak, which isn't good news when we get close enough to our target to see what they have. The answer is double what we've got, and that's not including the station itself. It's far too late to bugger off now, though, so Sisko orders everybody in, but we'll have to wait and see how all of this concludes, as we're told the story is to be continued. Starfleet's time getting their asses handed to them is drawing to a close, for either good or ill. A woefully under-equipped fleet is on its way to Terok Nor in a panicked attempt to stop the Alpha Quadrant from being overrun. All of which forms the backdrop again of Odetta's continuing subversion of Odo. He's now at the stage where even the prospect of breaking the spirit of every individual here causes him only brief discomfort, and even that is dispelled by the promise of more linking. Odetta's viewpoint of the solids being insignificant has started to become his own, though we still don't know if that's a willing choice on his part or a side effect of their joining. Odetta knows his conversion isn't complete, though, and blames spoken language when he balks at the idea of their subjugation. She frames the idea of what the Founders are doing as guidance, and might even believe it herself, but you don't guide a broken animal, you command it. None of that really matters to Odetta, though, at least at the moment. She tells Fifth Uncle Weyoun the Creepy that the Alpha Quadrant and all the people therein are secondary to a single changeling being returned to the Great Link. That she'd choose to throw away the lives of billions of solids to regain Odo shows just how much that guidance really means to her. If you wanted to be particularly ungenerous, even the return of Odo is a potentially selfish goal. One perspective on her previous explanation of the Great Link, specifically that it's a single organism, means his reacceptance may not be an act of kindness to him, but rather a self-serving one. It could be argued that she's not saving the drop, so much as expanding the ocean. We've still one more episode to talk about that stuff, though, so let's move on to some other interesting bits. First off, we get some incidental information about the Vorta. Fifth Uncle Weyoun the Creepy stating that the Vorta have no appreciation for art seems like an unimportant point, but it's one with a number of implications. On the surface, being able to see the abilities you lack is useful. Knowing your limitations stops you from being surprised by them. What's the purpose of missing those abilities, though? To quote Fifth Uncle Weyoun himself, "Sometimes I think it would be nice to be able to carry a tune." This opens up whole rafts of questions about how deep the manipulation goes and how much cognitive freedom the Vorta have when considering themselves. Is the immediate negative reaction to Kira suggesting the omission was an error by the Founders a true belief or a conditioned response? How does the doublethink of knowing the Founders were right sit with his occasional desire? Does that freedom of thought extend to considering the impact on Vorta culture from having no art, or lack of impact to be more precise? Does Fifth Uncle Weyoun have the mental freedom to consider how limiting Vorta expressions of individuality makes them a more pliable people? Would it bother him if he knew, or would he consider it yet another example of just how well his gods made him? Could the occasional twinge of desire from Fifth Uncle Weyoun even be evolution poking its head up in much the same way as we theorized Jem'Hadar disobedience could be? It all boils down to the same question in the end: just how good at manipulating biology are the Founders? It's been stated that the Dominion has existed for over 2,000 years, and on the one hand, that makes it sound like they've achieved pretty solid results. On the other, though, if they've been doing so well for so long, why do we still have Jem'Hadar who don't need Ketracel White? Why do we still have Vorta who want to carry a tune? While we're on the topic of questions, let's look at Kira and Ziyal. She asks Ziyal to speak to her father and convince him to free Rom, the underappreciated brother, but what was the real motivation behind this? Did Kira genuinely believe Ziyal had a chance of making it happen, or was this an intentional piece of familial sabotage on her part? Kira knows Ziyal idolizes her father as a hero and eats up all his lines about regretting his actions. Giving Ziyal a chance to let him prove it would be appealing to her, and the effect of him denying her easy to predict. So when Kira set this whole thing in motion, how much of it was really to help Rom, and how much to either open Ziyal's eyes or piss on Seagull Dukat, depending on how generous you want to be? If you want to be even more cynical, was the ultimate goal recruiting her? While we're on the topic of Seagull Dukat then, let's take another look at his real feelings towards Ziyal. We're on the verge of a great victory, and when it comes, I want my daughter at my side. Does he say he wants her to be a part of it? No. Does he say he wants her to experience the victory, to witness history? No. My daughter, my side. It's not for her, it's for him. He wants her to understand just how good he is at all this, to fawn over him adoringly. He doesn't love her, he loves her loving him. As we said last time, for Dukat, that's probably the closest he can ever get. We'll end by looking at another scene in this one that could be connected to Seagull Dukat's pride. When he's trying to show Fifth Uncle Wayoon the creepy that he's finally disabling the minds, he becomes visibly annoyed upon learning that Fifth Uncle Wayoon can't see them. He wanted the chance to gloat, to be told he's done such a very good job, and is clearly frustrated at being denied it. Sparring between the two of them has gone on for a little while, and Fifth Uncle Wayoon is not the sort to forgive being shown up in front of his god last episode. Taking a big old shit on Seagull Dukat's victory lap is exactly the sort of thing I can imagine Fifth Uncle Wayoon doing as a form of revenge. Why, one might even ask oneself if he was really being honest about those eyes of his at all, or whether he just saw a chance to be a dick to Seagull Dukat and seized it with both hands. Oh, and we've an entry for the Babylon 5 crossover club from this one as well. Admiral Coburn, played by Bart McCarthy, was both Shakiri in the Season 4 episode Moments of Transition, and Darrow from Season 5's Movements of Fire and Shadow. End of episode.
So this is it then, is it? The internet circa the late 20th century?
I suppose we should really be thankful it worked at all. He could have made this a lot worse for us.
Worse? I look like I'm being rendered by a fucking Atari 2600.
Oh, boo-hoo. Please, do explain in great detail about your terrible teleporter problem to the guy who doesn't have a goddamned face anymore.
Yeah, alright, point made. Yes, it could have been worse. All I'm saying is this ain't ideal.
What does it matter? We'll only be like this for as long as we're in digital form.
Yeah, and how long's that gonna take? We're already 5 episodes down and we only just got into bloody system. Do you honestly reckon this dingbat can pull off a coherent plot to get us through the internet and out somewhere else in the next 21 parts?
Who said anything about coherent? Woof.